So today at our Western Caucus Forum, we held a forum on the Green New Deal. We heard about how this socialist pipe dream seeks to fundamentally transform America. Now, the new Green Deal would provide education, health care, and housing to all. In fact, the Mercatus Center estimates that the cost of the single-payer health care provision alone would cost over $32 trillion in the first 10 years. The American Action Forum estimates that this plan would cost up to $93 trillion in the first 10 years, and that every American household could have to pay $65,000 per year to foot the bill on the Green New Deal. This is more like the Green New Deal has taken us down to the Green Mile. The Green New Deal is a socialistic manifesto that changes by the day and important details on a transition of the Green New Deal's magnitude, how it will occur, are missing, including how we'll pay for this pie-in-the-sky aspiration. The Green New Deal attacks American jobs and our way of life. I was hopeful that some of the folks who support the Green New Deal would have shown up today and explained how this pipe dream will all work, especially as Democratic socialists who introduced this bill have made it clear that they want to use our climate change as a means to abolish capitalism and implement massive taxation, expropriation, and government control. With a nearly $22 trillion debt, we don't have any more money to borrow to pay for an exorbitant fantasy. I would now like to turn it over to Mark Wayne Mullen from Oklahoma, and we'll pass it down the line. Mark Wayne.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everybody. Listen, the Democrats are really good at disguising what really is something in a bill. I mean, from affordable health care to Medicaid or Medicare for all and the Green New Deal. It has nothing to do with fossil fuels. It has nothing to do with energy. It has to do with socialism. Think about it. We all laugh when they say that you got to replace all the buildings in 10 years. We sit there and we go, really? No, it's about taking over the buildings in 10 years. It's about taking over our universities, our office buildings, our apartments. How else are they going to guarantee housing for all? How else are they going to pay for education for all? We all laugh when they say they're going to take away air travel in 10 years. But how else are they going to control the movement of individuals, like China, through high-speed rail? We laugh about it, but guys, we should wake up and understand this has nothing to do with energy and everything to do with Cortez's plan to taking America to a socialist style of government. We all say that's not going to happen. This is no joke. This is for real, and we need to recognize it. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague from Oklahoma, Kevin Hearn.
Oklahoma's energy industry employs hundreds of thousands of people and generates more than $50 billion annually. Energy brings high-paying jobs to my district and has been the single largest contributor to state revenue in recent years. In short, energy is the lifeblood of Oklahoma's economy. Under this toxic legislation, we would lose every job in energy, and every penny energy contributes to our state economy. Tulsa is also home to the largest commercial aircraft repair facility in the world. Oklahomans provide the parts and technologies for commercial and military aircrafts across the globe. Aviation and aerospace accounts for 74,000 jobs across the state and generates $43.7 billion in economic impact annually. To put it bluntly, the Green New Deal is a threat to my community and to our state. This bill wouldn't just destroy our way of life, it would eliminate our best jobs and destroy more than half of our state's economic output. I will never support a bill that does that to any of my constituents. Thank you, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague from South Dakota, Dusty Johnson.
Thanks. Nothing works in Pelosi's America these days. So ladies and gentlemen, I am Dusty Johnson. I represent the entire state of South Dakota. You know, this plan is so outrageous that it's been called the Green Dream. But now keep in mind that in this dream there are no South Dakota dairy cattle. That means there's no South Dakota milk, and that means there are no South Dakota milkshakes.
Dunkin' Donut.
No South Dakota milkshakes. That sounds like, not like a dream, but it sounds like a nightmare for South Dakota and for the rest of this country. Now, this proposal, if my colleagues had really analyzed this, they would understand that this is completely unattainable. It's not good for America. It's not the right way that we should tackle the legitimate environmental concerns our country has. There's a better way to get this done, and in fact, if my colleagues on the left had done their homework, they would realize that there has already been a Green New Deal passed by Congress. Ladies and gentlemen, passed just a couple of months ago. It's called the 2018 Farm Bill. Now, in the 2018 Farm Bill, we had incredible progress made on conservation, on forestry management, on energy efficiency, and in so many other areas. We all want, every single person here wants what is best for the environment, but now is the time not for outrageous, unattainable plans, dreams. Now is the time for realistic problem solvers to work together to find a way forward. You know what? If we do that, I'm still going to get my milkshake. Thank you. And now it's my honor to introduce a true freedom fighter. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Rob Bishop of Utah. Give it up for Rob.
Don't go that far. Look, this entire scheme was designed by a bunch of Eastern urbanites that have absolutely no clue what it is like to live in the wide open spaces of the West, or in rural America, or anywhere where the agriculture actually flourishes. What they don't realize is that actually by grazing, you can take more carbon out of the atmosphere and put it into plant life than you can do by taking away all of the airplanes flying throughout the entire world. So, since they still, in this Green New Deal, want to control my life, let me go to President Obama's favorite place and realize that if this goes through, this will be outlawed. I can no longer eat this type of thing. So before they take it away from me,
pass it around.
Can I get that shake too?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Before it's illegal and an endangered species, I'm actually going to enjoy this a whole lot more than I would the Green New Deal. Let me introduce, while I finish my lunch, the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Biggs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I feel bad. I didn't come up with a milkshake or a burger. Apparently I was supposed to bring fries and didn't get the memo. You know, my friends and my colleagues here have, from the Western Caucus, they've been talking about carbon, they've been talking about energy, they've been talking about the cost, the incredible cost of this proposed plan. But I want to talk briefly solely about what it takes to implement this plan. This plan, which could cost at least $93 trillion, maybe higher, maybe as low as 55, whatever it is incredible in its cost and scope and breadth. That's what this plan is. But there's only one way you can impose that plan, because nobody's going to volunteer to give up their burgers or their milkshakes or the things that, like flying. Make it tough for the delegation from Hawaii, wouldn't it? People are going to need to be coerced. That's what's going to happen. That's what this plan is about. This isn't a new Green Deal or Green New Deal, whatever. It is a Green Socialist Manifesto. That's exactly what this is, because it's a desire to convert this free market economy where people have choice and they have accountability. This will convert that so where there is no choice and there's precious little accountability. But what there will be is government coercion at every level as this plan reaches into every aspect of your life. That's what this is all about. And so when you're calculating carbon costs, you're calculating the actual dollar cost, the one thing you should always remember is, how will this be imposed? It's going to be imposed by the big hand of government. And we can't stand for that, and I won't stand for it. And so now it's my pleasure to introduce my good friend from Kansas, Representative Roger Marshall.
Thanks, Andy. Thank you. Well, good evening, everybody. Like most every person up here, I want to leave this world, this country, better than I found it. But whenever I see a new major policy out there, I like to look through the eyes of the person who might be most negatively impacted by that new policy. So I often think about that single mom who I delivered 9 or 10 years ago, and now she has 2 children in grade school. How would this new Green Deal impact her family? My guess is her grocery bill would quadruple, her monthly electric bill would triple, and her federal taxes would double. Speaking of groceries, I think this Green Deal would mean the end of agriculture as we know it, and people across the world will literally starve as a result. And in my opinion, the American farmer and rancher are the greatest conservationists in the world. On the surface, the new Green Deal appears to me to be nothing more than a rebranding of Marxist-inspired control of every aspect of American everyday life under the guise of environmental stewardship. The new Green Deal is not about stopping climate change, it's about government control. As for me, I will promote innovation and technology and consumer choice driving these discussions. Again, always focusing on common goals and objectives. Thank you so much, and now it's my pleasure to introduce Myron Ebel from the Competitive Enterprise Institute. Myron?
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, and I want to thank Chairman Gozar and the Western Caucus for holding this conference and the forum that they held earlier this afternoon. The reactions of conservatives and Republicans to the Green Leap backward have been various. I think the Western Caucus and the Natural Resources Committee under Chairman Bishop has been solidly, we don't want it. But there are many people out there like the Climate Leadership Council and the ranking Republicans on other House committees who say, well, we have to have an alternative. We have to have some reasonable solution, a moderate solution. And so that's why the Green New Deal is actually here to promote carbon taxes. I just want to say to all the carbon taxers and all the potential carbon taxers, there is an alternative to the Green Leap backwards. It's called the Trump energy agenda, the deregulatory agenda that is leading America to become the world's greatest energy producer and to give our manufacturing industries and our consumers who use electricity in their houses a tremendous advantage over every other country in the world. So whenever conservatives hear from the carbon taxers, just say we already have the alternative. It's called the Trump energy agenda. Thank you.
Hi, Rick Manning, Americans for Limited Government. America is the greatest, most abundant nation on earth. We are, in fact, have driven more economic growth, have brought more people out of poverty than any country in the history of the world. We've done it because of free markets. We've done it because of local control. We've done it because people innovate, and that innovation is rewarded because of the profit motive. Capitalism works. Capitalism works. Socialism is a recipe that promises abundance but delivers deprivation and scarcity. Boris Yeltsin came to America back in the 1990s, and he went to Houston. He went to the Houston Space Center. It wasn't the Houston Space Center that caused Boris Yeltsin to reject communism. It was a grocery store, Randall's Grocery in Houston, where he saw the abundance on the shelves, where he saw the cartons and cartons, and he thought to his own home country and said, in Russia, in Soviet Union, people go starving because the shelves are empty. Here in America, there's abundance. I say reject the Green New Deal and embrace abundance, embrace prosperity. Thank you. And we've got Tom Pyle, who's the president of American Energy Alliance. And Tom is one of the smartest energy people I know. And he was the head of the Trump transition team on energy. So if there's somebody here you want to talk to about how you grow the energy economy, Tom's the guy.
Thanks, Rick. Appreciate
You're welcome.
it. Just real quick, because a lot of what's needed to be said has already been said. The bottom line is, as a political or policy document, it's an unrealistic, unworkable, technologically infeasible document. However, it is a good organizing document. And if you think about it, you know, several years ago, the environmental left was talking about pipelines and how dangerous pipelines were. And we as conservatives and folks who understand how pipelines work, were basically laughing it off. And lo and behold, you had the Keystone Pipeline, and now you have across the country environmental organizations blockading the construction of pipelines around the country. They made pipelines controversial. That is the value of this Green New Deal, is to make carbon taxes, cap and trade, things that the Democrats could not pass in 2009 when they had the entire Congress, a majority, a 60-vote majority in the Senate, and Barack Obama in the White House, and still couldn't get cap and trade through. So as Myron echoed, the real danger to the Green New Deal, besides the fact that it's immoral and hurts the people that the proponents claim to want to help the most, is that it gives other Republicans, other groups, some wiggle room to push for less extreme options such as cap and trade or carbon taxes. So I appreciate the leadership of the Western Caucus for recognizing and fighting this proposal, not coming up with an alternative. The alternative is what we have, and that is the fracking boom and the energy boom and the energy renaissance that we're enjoying in this country. So thank you very much. Happy to answer any questions after. Oh, sorry, Katie Todd with Heritage.
Hi, my name is Katie Todd with the Heritage Foundation. Quite simply, the Green New Deal would have no impact on climate temperatures, regardless of what your opinion is on global warming. But it would have a huge impact on Americans, not just in investment pulled away to build renewable infrastructure, but also in increasing energy costs, which ripples throughout the economy. And of course, that impacts the poor the most. They have to dedicate a larger percentage of their income to meeting energy needs. And so this Green New Deal is incredibly regressive. I would also say that it is destructive to American freedom and our system of government. It empowers cronyism by putting decision-making power in the hands of bureaucrats and lobbyists rather than American individuals. So I think, as Myron said earlier, it's a great leap backwards rather than getting to a dynamic energy sector that meets Americans' needs. With that, I'd like to introduce David Legates from the University of Delaware.
Thank you. I'm the climatologist of the group, and I'm sort of wondering why I'm here, and particularly because we're focused so much on carbon dioxide, and a lot of people seem to think that carbon dioxide changes the climate quite a bit. I can tell you, carbon dioxide is but a minor player in climate change. In my introductory class, I spent about 40 hours talking about climate and its causes, and we spend less than an hour talking about carbon dioxide. In fact, the most important compound on the planet isn't carbon dioxide, it's water. Water is more important to people because if you've got too much of it, it can kill you. If you don't have enough of it, it can kill you. And particularly when it comes down to being a greenhouse gas, it beats carbon dioxide at its own game. So therefore, carbon dioxide is not the magic gas and the dangerous gas everybody says. And so my conclusion is that when we start talking about Green New Deals and things like that, that this is not about the climate at all, because our discussion of climate change really isn't about climate change. Climate always changed, climate always has changed, climate always will change. And so really, in particular, there's other things more important to worry about than stopping the climate from changing. And that's why I'm very concerned about some of the things that I see in this Green New Deal. I'd like to turn it over now to Michael Zayer from CEA.
Hey there, I'm not a climatologist, I'm an energy consumer, and today in our testimony for Consumer Energy Alliance, we highlighted just the impacts that really bad policy can have on real people. And just with four appliances that most Americans have, the cost of replacement would impose a cost of over $240 billion on families that really can't absorb that cost. Proposals like this, they can be comical, but proposals like this that gain traction are dangerous. And from a consumer standpoint, we want to make sure that all policymakers, and we applaud the Western Caucus for focusing on this, we want to make sure that the focus is on consumer benefits. We support all the above energy proposal. We support all forms. But we want to make sure that consumers will benefit. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I thank the Western Caucus. I'm Mark Morano, the publisher of Climate Depot and the author of The Politically Incorrect Guide to Climate Change. Richard Lindsay, the MIT climate scientist, said, "He who controls carbon controls life. It is a bureaucrat's dream to control carbon dioxide." Well, Washington is a field of green dreamers, in the words of Nancy Pelosi right now, as they believe that they're going to use the Green New Deal to essentially expand the widest scope of government in the history of the United States, it seems though. And I think the importance of this meeting today is to show this has nothing to do with the climate. Using the EPA's own numbers, climatologist Dr. Pat Michaels actually projected out, and you cannot tell the temperature difference 100 years from now, assuming the EPA's science on climate and the UN climate was correct. There's a lot of reasons not to assume that, but even if you accept their numbers, it would have no detectable impact 100 years from now. So it's pure climate nonsense. It harkens back to medieval witchcraft to think that we could pass legislation that will affect our weather, our storms, our temperature, when their own models admit that it can't. So as I said in my testimony, this is plagiarism, pure and simple. The Green New Deal borrows from every previous environmental scare since the 1960s, beginning with overpopulation, and all they've done is change the environmental scare, but the solution's the same. Massive government expansion, war on capitalism, wealth redistribution, and in many cases, global governance and sovereignty limiting treaties and regulations. So the Green New Deal is not green, it's not new, it's a raw deal. 100 years ago, 80% of our energy came from fossil fuels. Today, 80% of our energy comes from fossil fuels. The idea that in 10 years we're going to make even a dent in that, let alone get a fossil-free world, is scientific, political, economic, and physical nonsense. Thank you.
Well, once again, I wish we had a little bit of heat today, so that might have made us warm up a little bit. But my last comment is coming from Arizona. If the Green New Deal comes in, I'm the first in line for that mythical creature called a unicorn, because they don't produce methane and we can get to and fro. So if somebody's got a question, we'd be happy to take some questions. Yes, Penny.
Hi, I'm Penny Starr with Breitbart News. So there's been several candidates that are going to challenge President Trump in 2020 who are embracing this. What does that say about 2020 and the future of this?
Well, part of what we did today is we tried to make sure that some of the experts started coming out and got stuff out into the sphere so that it could be used as tools. Because this nonsense that we're hearing, particularly from some of the candidates, that it's a return on investment. Obviously, these people that keep talking about return of investment aren't business people. They don't understand it. And that's the fraud. So what we're trying to do is make sure that the people of America hear the real science, hear the real facts, and can make the decision for themselves. This is nothing more than trying to take a socialist manifesto and change capitalism. That's it. Yes?
Sir, I greatly respect everyone here. But with all due respect, there's no distinction between real facts and facts. The truth of the matter is 97% of scientists in the world agree about climate change.
You don't have your facts together.
Right, sir. I have to finish. And I don't mean to be disrespectful here at all, but my generation is the one that is going to have to deal with this catastrophe that is impending. And personally, I would like to see my government do more. The Green New Deal might not be the entire solution, and I agree that it might be a overreach of government, but what is it that you are doing to help our generation sustain in the future? What is it that you are doing to prevent carbon dioxide emissions? What is it that you're doing to create a more sustainable future for my generation?
Unfortunately, you haven't been taught about photosynthesis. And photosynthesis is where plants take carbon dioxide to produce oxygen. That's the problem in today's world, is that we haven't taught kids exactly what's going on in America and in science. So what we've been doing is a portfolio of all the above. We want energy sources that are solar, that are wind, that are natural gas. All the above, because what ends up happening when you have a portfolio all across the venues, you get competition. Competition breeds lower prices and accessibility. The entrepreneurial application of this country has far exceeded any other country. Our emissions are plummeting after the last 4 years, particularly with the increase in our carbon footprint, are decreasing with the explosion of liquefied natural gas and petroleum. We've seen it go down in the last 4 years when we've seen the use of it increase. So the thing is this common sense prevails. You know, when we start looking at a healthcare system that's for all, Medicare is falling apart. Why would we want to go to something that's falling apart? Aren't we better than that? Wouldn't we want to empower people instead of victimize them? That's all this is about, is changing the direction and making people victims versus empowered. So,
yes. The Republican Party I would just like to get a little more specific with that. I'm with E&E News.
Yes.
So, do you believe that greenhouse gases are warming the planet, and would you do anything would you propose a policy to stop that?
Well, I mean, even negligible, some of the experts, I mean,
we have a climatologist here, Dr. David Legates, but I would just say this. Hundreds of factors influence the climate. Yes, carbon dioxide can warm the planet, but the idea that government is a control knob, government can pass legislation to control it. I think of the lords of Lord Monckton, who actually the former Thatcher advisor, came to Capitol Hill a few years ago and said, when confronted with the non-problem of global warming, we must have the courage to do nothing. And I think that is a not bad advice here, because the idea that government is going to centrally plan, limit our economic choices. This young person over here was just saying they're worried about the future. Wouldn't you want a future of more choice, of more technology, of more economic growth? Why limit yourself on some idea that somehow it's a catastrophe? That's a sad world you've laid out for yourself.
I would like a future where I can thrive and live and have clean air and clean water, unlike what we see in China today.
We do. Since 1970.
We won't have that in 100 years' time, man.
No, well,
okay.
Hi, Amy Harder with Axios. Thank you for holding this conference. 2 questions for you. 1, do you think the Republican Party needs to have a climate change policy? And then number 2, do you support the Trump administration's plan to create a panel to refute the mainstream climate science?
Well, I think we started that today, is having that conversation about what are some of the facts. Yeah, that's what we started today, is having some of the experts come and starting to testify. We also invited others, the Sierra Club, Ms. Cortez. Originally she confirmed and then had to cancel. So we wanted to have that debate, that civil debate about what is fact and science. That's the key. That's where we have found ourselves today. Well, we have the cleanest environment comparatively to India and China. So you can't say that this country hasn't strived for that. None of us want dirty water or dirty air. None of us do. We want to make sure that we have that. And when you start to see those carbon emissions plummeting over the last 3 years, it's because we're doing it the American way, not the Chinese or the Indian way. Yes, ma'am.
Tiffany Stecker with Bloomberg News. You talk about the Green New Deal, but you also make reference to carbon tax proposals, some of which come from your own party. We have an op-ed from some of the leaders of energy commerce saying we have a better plan for climate change. Is that a threat as well within Republicans who promote maybe a carbon tax or carbon fee or some of these other plans? You know,
I would always look at the aspect that the government isn't the solution, government is the problem. And so the more you tax, the more freedom you lose. And so that's not the right way. And that's why we have to have that conversation about the true facts, about what's actually happening. As a son of a geologist, our climate has always changed. And if you doubt me, go dig up some fossils. It'll tell you an awful lot about how our climate has changed. Go ahead.
The leader McCarthy hasn't announced the Republican members of the Select Committee on the Climate Crisis. Do you have any idea who that might be and how that panel might?
Take it up with Minority Leader McCarthy.
Are you interested in being on it?
I'm pretty busy right now.
You could counter the Green New Deal.
I'm doing it right now. Anything else? Well, folks, thanks for coming out today, and I want to thank all the members and all our witnesses for coming forward. I hope this starts the discussion of based on facts and making sure that people have the science and the acknowledgement that the Green New Deal isn't about the facts. The Green New Deal is about the change from a capitalistic entrepreneurial application to a socialistic application of victimization. Thank you.